Good morning, lovely people on Instagram, and good morning, wonderful people on Facebook. How are you this beautiful Monday morning? I hope and pray that you have had a fantastic weekend just gone ahead. It is now Monday. We are ready for an incredible new week ahead. This is why I do this show live on Facebook and Instagram, Rise Up and Shine, so we can provide you with some inspiration, motivation, and encouragement for your day ahead and for your week ahead and in life in general. So I just want to say welcome again. Thank you for joining us at Rise Up and Shine on this Monday morning. So today we are going to talk about the difference between self-care and self-love. This topic in itself can be quite controversial, and the reason I'm bringing it to you today actually is really interesting. I had a Facebook post a good couple of weeks ago now where I was inviting people into my group, Women Rising Above, which is an incredible group that I have, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. This lady said that she was interested, so I sent her an invitation, and it was all well and good until she came back and she said to me, "I'm sorry, I can't join your group because you practice self-care and self-love, and I don't agree with that." And I was really intrigued by her answer. I was kind of like, oh, that I've never heard that before. So I engaged in conversation with her about why she didn't agree with self-love and self-care. And it really, and although I didn't necessarily agree with her opinion, it really got me thinking about this topic and how I approach it. It was a really interesting conversation. And so what I did was I put, about a week later, I put another post up on Facebook, and I asked other people about what their opinions were on self-love and self-care, and these two words, or these two topics in particular. And it was really interesting. Some of the responses that I got, yes, there was some people that didn't agree with it. They said, that it was in vain, and that they thought it was, and I'm reluctant to use this word, but evil. Some people, we had some answers that said, forgive me because I'm just reading them here, self-love can be viewed as egotistical if a person thinks they're better than everybody else. Self-love is putting boundaries in place to protect yourself. It is a way to revitalize and replenish your soul. One opinion was how we feel about ourselves. And so, hang on, let me say. So self-love is how we feel about ourselves. Self-care is how we treat ourselves. I thought that was a very interesting way of looking at it. Self-care is an act of kindness. Some said both are the same. And there was a lot of opinions shared, but I don't have time to tell them all to you today. But it was very interesting, the range of opinions and ideals that people were sharing it with me. So I thought, well, I'm going to come on the show today, and I'm going to talk to you and share with you how I approach this, and some of the reasons why I approach it the way I do. And, I hope that you will get something out of this morning. I'm sure you will. All right. So it's really interesting when, as I said, this initial conversation from this lady really challenged me. And I realized how much my opinions now differ from the opinions I used to have, and how much they have changed over the years. It's amazing how much my opinions have changed. So self-care is something that, I have known that needed to be done, but something that, and this is, for me, this is in a past life. So self-care is something that I've known I needed to do, but it's something that I didn't think I deserved. And this particular belief for me, and again, this is a past thought I've had, this is, I believe, formed because of the direct result of some frequent abusive comments that I received. I mean on a day in, day out, over and over and over again. It's the old chestnut of me being told that I wasn't good enough. So I formed the belief that I didn't deserve to practice that self-care. I didn't deserve, and self-care is basically looking after yourself, right? And then we come to self-love. Now, self-love in the past for me is something that I have seen as vain. You know, someone, she or he loves themselves, you know, in the sense of tall poppy syndrome, you know, someone, they love themselves, they think they're better than everybody else, right? These are the way I used to think about it, right? So now I honestly look at both these topics totally differently. And it's amazing that it's almost for me even like a total 180 turnaround. And I want to share with you today, you know, a little bit about how I've come to change and why I have these opinions and why I share and I work with ladies to share, you know, in these areas in particular to bring them back into their confidence. So, you know, I have worked really, really hard on my own self-development. And as I said, with lots of other ladies. So now I truly believe that self-care is something that we need to practice in order to keep our physical, our mental, and our spiritual selves healthy. So I truly believe that this is something that we need to practice to be able to keep ourselves healthy. And then self-love is what happens as a result of that self-care. Okay, and I'm going to dive deeper into this. So let's look at self-care first. So and it's really interesting because I love, when I talk about these topics, I love to go and look up the dictionary meaning. It's always really interesting to see what the dictionary says about it. So for self-care, the dictionary meaning says the art of attending to one's physical or mental health, generally without medical or professional consultation. Or something else that says, another definition is the products or practices used to comfort or soothe ourselves, right? So that's the dictionary meaning. Now, you know, as most of you would know, something that I'm really big on is bringing women back to themselves, you know, bringing the care back to themselves. I'm really big on doing that. And, you know, we are, as women, we are natural nurturers. We are born to be nurturers, you know, whether that is, and I don't just mean in the sense of being mothers. Yes, we are nurturers in the sense of motherhood, but not all of us are mums. So we nurture people in other ways. You know, we're aunties, we're friends. We are, you know, women working in jobs that we care about, people that we need to nurture in our jobs. You know, we've got other family members. There's all kinds of areas where we nurture other people, okay? And what I see a lot of is that as these natural nurturers, we are so busy nurturing everybody else and looking after everybody else, keeping each other happy, you know, our partners, that we forget about looking after ourselves. And this is something that I used to do. You know, I used to be so busy pleasing my husband and trying to make him proud of me and trying to make him happy that I was not looking after myself. And you know, I'm kind of reluctant to say this, but my beautiful mum, who is now in heaven, I watched her as this woman who is a beautiful nurturer with a heart of gold, who loved to help everybody else around her. I watched her nurture everybody else to the detriment of her own health. And I truly believe that is part of, not all of, but that is part of why she's no longer here with us today, is because she didn't look after her own health as much as she could have. Sorry, Mum. But, you know, I really do wholeheartedly believe that, you know, in order to be the best possible nurturers for other people that we can possibly be, we need to bring that self-care back to ourselves as individuals first. Now, when I, as I said, I was in an abusive marriage. If you don't know my story, I've had a couple of marriages that haven't worked out. My first one in particular was a very abusive marriage. When I came out of that and I became a single mum, I very quickly learnt the art of self-care. I didn't really have a choice. I had to do it. I had to make sure that because all of a sudden I was responsible solely for these two beautiful children. And I had to make sure that I, got enough sleep, that I was eating healthy and eating enough. I had to make sure I was getting enough exercise. I had to make sure that I was looking after my mental health, because you can imagine there was a lot going on. I had to make sure I was looking after my mental health first, so then I could be there to support my children in their mental health. And also, when I was working in the school environment, this is my last, one of the job I had, which I left because of PTSD, anxiety and depression. In this particular job, it was customer service. And part of the reason I left this job was because of stress and anxiety that came on, because I was so busy trying to keep everybody else happy that I wasn't putting my own health first. There was people at work, for whatever reason, bullying me. There was sexual harassment from the boss. It was a very toxic work environment happening. And I was so busy trying to please everybody else and prove to them that I was good at my job that I was ignoring the personal signs that I had of that anxiety. I didn't realize I had anxiety at the time, but in this case, I was certainly putting my own health, my own self-care last, because I was just so busy trying to prove myself to everybody else. So I would say I was putting it last. I wasn't even practicing self-care in this sense. All right. So and I know a lot of people, when they think of self-care, they think of pampering ourselves. Now, I used to think of self-care as just pampering too. I absolutely did. Things like giving yourself a facial, going out and getting a massage, having a nice glass of wine while you relax in a nice hot bath, reading a book, taking some time out for yourself to read a book. Now, whatever you consider pampering. Now, yes, this is part of self-care, but it is only a teeny tiny part of self-care. To me, self-care is so much more. It's so bigger than that. It is recognizing that we need to take time for ourselves. And so this self-care might be, rather than just the pampering side of it, it might be taking a step back from things that aren't serving us, things that are in our life, things or people that aren't in our lives that are in our lives that we're not currently aligned with. It might mean setting boundaries where necessary. Big things to think about. And I talk about these things in particular in depth when I talk in my, my regular webinars that I hold, 5 Secrets to Awakening Your Confidence. And I talk about them in depth in my online confidence course membership, the Phoenix Method. We go deep into talking about boundaries and self-love and self-care. But, so self-care isn't just pampering. It is so much more than that. It's so much deeper, and something that I have come to very much enjoy practicing. It's interesting. Sundays are my day off. Sundays, for instance, this is a boundary that I have, looking after myself and practicing self-care. Sundays are the one day in the week that I refuse to do any work. As in work in my business. That is a form of self-care. That is a boundary that I've set. So there's a little kind of, definition for you there. Now, let's look at self-love. All right, so that was self-care we've just spoken about. Now we're going to talk about self-love. So the dictionary definition of self-love is very, very interesting. The dictionary definition is the instinct by which one's actions are directed to the promotion of their own welfare or well-being, especially an excessive regard to their own advantage, basically. Now, so I kind of agree with this, but I kind of don't, right? And this is the dictionary definition, right? So I agree with some of it, but I don't necessarily agree with all of it. So as I said, I personally used to look at self-care, self-love, as vanity. Perhaps, perhaps this is because of my religious upbringing, and I'm not here to have a go at anyone's beliefs. I totally believe that everyone is entitled to their opinion and their beliefs. But my upbringing was that to love yourself was not a good thing, right? It was vanity. And the difference is, though, that now in everything that I've learned about myself and about helping other people, I now see self-love as practicing self-care. Let me rephrase that. So now I see self-care. By practicing self-care, we are essentially bringing ourselves into that self-love. Now, that kind of doesn't make sense. So let me put it in this phrase. Okay. So I believe that God gave us these amazing bodies, these amazing minds, and he gave us a soul. And I believe that these gifts, these are absolutely gifts that we have been given. It is a gift to be here on this earth. And I can't remember the numbers actually, but there was a lady I follow, Sarah Prout, and I wish I could remember the numbers. I wish I'd looked them up, but she said something, it's something in 1 trillion, it's 1 in 1 trillion chance or something that you were born and put on this earth. I don't know if those are the numbers, but I thought, but when you think about that, you go, wow, we have been given a gift to be allowed and be placed and be born into this life that we live. So as this gift that we have, why shouldn't we love it? Why shouldn't we look after it? And I believe that because it's a gift, that it's actually something that we need to look after and that we need to love. So with self-love, as long as we're maybe not of the opinion that we're better than everybody else, that self-love in itself is a good thing. If we're believing, again, that tall poppy syndrome, if it's kind of like, I love myself and I'm better than you and you'll never be as good as me, that's not a good thing. But if you can truly, truly, truly say, I love myself and practice this self-care, this self-love, get confused between the two, this self-love, then that is a great thing, okay? And something that, I've spoken about this before, something that I practice and that I am very, very keen on and I love to do is practice mirror work. And this is something that I use with all my clients. Every single person I work with is we go in depth about mirror work. And, this is something where we go to the mirror and we tell ourselves on a daily basis, I love you. Tell it to ourselves in the mirror, And this practice in itself, so mirror work is a form of self-care, which in order helps us create self-love. So do you see how they come together? So it's the practice of telling ourselves, I love you. It's not vanity. It's teaching yourself to believe that you are this wonderful being that has been put on this earth. Okay? And this practice itself, mirror work, and this is why I'm so passionate about it. Mirror work, created by Louise Hay, was something that when I first heard about it, I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. I really did. But I was very quickly convinced, because this is what helped me. One of the major tools that helped me on my recovery from PTSD, anxiety, and depression after leaving that job, you know. And this is why I'm so bloody passionate about it now, because I know that it works. And I'm not afraid. I actually love going to the mirror on a daily basis and telling myself, I love you, Ali. And I work with a lot of ladies who have the same, you know, they come to the same realization. They go, oh, it's wonderful to be able to go to the mirror in the morning or whenever they do it during the day and say, I love you. So I now, and I know a lot of women who now can go to the mirror and say to themselves, I love you. And they can say, yes, I love myself. You know, they can say, yes, I love who I've become. And yes, I love what I have learned about myself. Now, and I say all these things too. Now, does this mean that we're perfect? No, because no one's perfect, you know. And when I, you know, to be open and honest with you here, when I say I love myself, I love who I've become, and I love what I've learned, does that mean I love everything about myself? Well, let's be honest, no, it doesn't. You know, are there things about me that I would change? Yes, of course there are. And I'm working on those, you know. But in general, I can truly, honest to God, say now that, Ali, I love you. I can say I love myself. I'm proud. I'm proud of myself. And again, this, you know, this isn't in vain. This isn't vanity. This is just me deep down in my soul loving myself, self-love, you know, loving and being proud of myself. So I want to ask you some questions today. And they may be quite confronting questions for you. So one of them is, how do you feel about yourself? And do you practice self-care? You know, do you take time for yourself? When you think of self-care, what is it to you? Do you take time for yourself just for you? You know, self-care also, now that I think, you know, self-care might also be spending time with your family, you know, with you know, you might be so busy at work for 40 hours a week that self-care might be for you having some family time on the weekend, but it's something that you enjoy. So do you take time just for yourself, doing something that makes you happy and bringing that self-love back into your body, mind, and spirit? And another question, you know, can you honestly say that you love yourself? Not in a vain way, but deep down in your heart, can you say that you love yourself? You know, this often is one of the most confronting questions that I ask my clients. Now, you know, do you, can you honestly say that you love yourself? And, you know, the reason my clients, I think, you know, and the reason a lot of people will have so much trouble with this question is because often we get emotional when the deep down truth is that, no, we're struggling with our self-confidence, we're struggling with our self-love. You know, we don't feel good about ourselves deep down, right? And it's tough. You know, the answer to this question can honestly be quite tough. And this, you know, when we have difficulty answering the question about self-love, this is when our confidence truly suffers, because we just go, you know, and this is where, like I was previously, it's kind of like where, you know, I don't deserve to be loved. I don't deserve to practice self-care. You know, and the old chestnut of I'm not good enough. So this is where I really want to, again, extend an invitation to you all. I have regular webinars that I hold, as I mentioned before, online, and it's called 5 Secrets to Awakening Your Confidence. And this is where we go deeper into areas about practicing self-love and self-care. And I'd love to invite you to the next one. I believe the link will be going up in the description, in the comments shortly. If you're watching on Instagram, the link is in the bio. You can go and find it in there. It'll be the very top one that you see, into the next webinar that we're holding this week. And by attending these types of webinars in themselves, and can actually be a form of self-care itself when you think about it, because you are doing something for you. You are taking time out to work on yourself, to better your mindset, to work on how you feel about yourself, and to bring, to practice that self-care in order to have that self-love. So I would love to see you over in 5 Secrets to Awakening Your Confidence. As I said, the link is in the bio on Instagram, and it will be going up shortly in the comments on Facebook. So I just want to say thank you everyone for joining me today. And I actually love the fact that this particular topic came up because of a conversation that I was challenged in myself. So, if you've got anything that you would like me to discuss on Rise Up and Shine, please feel free to send me a PM or pop it in the comments below. I would love to hear, because I personally loved being challenged, in my own thinking. All right, beautiful people. So thank you for joining me today on Rise Up and Shine. I will see you at the webinar this week, 5 Secrets to Awakening Your Confidence. And we'll also see you next Monday. All right. Bye, everybody. Whoops.